Hi guys, it's Katie. Today I'm going to do the answer part of my question and answer. I got quite a few questions. Some of them were kind of in depth, so I'm going to just jump right in. Try not to make this too long. Thanks for everybody who asked questions. So these are in no particular order. I'm just starting at the top. How old is your daughter and when is baby number 2 due? My daughter is going to be 3 in just a few weeks, and baby number 2 is due, I think it's the 24th or the 25th of October. I got 2 different dates based on ultrasounds and other things, so middle to end of October. So she'll have already turned 3 before the baby comes, so that's good for me. Have you ever thought of starting a bed and breakfast or a restaurant? No. I feel like to do something like that, it's like 95% business and 5% creativity, and I have no brain for business. Even if somebody else was handling all of the business side, I don't think that I would like that very much. A lot of pressure, so I like feeding my family who are very receptive and open to trying things and understanding when things don't always go well. So paying guests not always that way. So let's see. And what is one type of crafting that you always wanted to try but never have? Actually, I want to try wood carving, specifically wooden spoons, which sounds very specific, but there's like a whole community on YouTube of people who carve spoons, so like cooking spoons, but also eating spoons, and like bowls and cups, salad bowls, and like big serving bowls and things like that. I just think that would be so cool. I actually got some wood carving knives for Christmas last year, and I have not used them yet. But yeah, I think it would be so cool to carve a wooden spoon that then I could cook with. I really want to do that. And then the last question from this from Amanda was, where did you grow up? I grew up where I live now, which is the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Let's see, I got a lot of congratulations between all these questions, so thank you for that. Next question. Let's see. Do you know if you're having a boy or girl? I don't know. We didn't know with our first. It was a big surprise. I haven't had any feelings or anything like that. People ask if I, feel a certain way or if this pregnancy is different. It's a little bit different, but I think a second pregnancy is always different than a first pregnancy. But I haven't had any like major problems with either pregnancy. They've both been easy, so I have no idea what we're having. Next part of this question is, how many children do you and your husband want to have? I don't think we ever had a number in mind. We both have siblings, so having multiple children is completely familiar to us. I think we just started with 1 and we're gonna see how it goes. It's been going okay, I guess, so we're trying for number 2. I don't know if we'll have any more past this. You never know. I'm not getting any younger, and I don't think that I could have children very close together. I'm very happy that my first she's potty trained, she walks, she can communicate verbally to a certain extent. So I am not cut out for like a 2 under 2 situation, so maybe we'll stop at 2. Maybe if we time it just right, we'll get a 3rd, but however many, it's fine with me. Let's see. Question. What are some tips or encouraging words you have for somebody who has a hard time making bread? I have always been intimidated by working with yeast, and the first time I made bread, it came out dense as a brick, and I've been a bit nervous to try again, and I hope I'm not the only one with this problem. You're not. I've been baking bread for at least a full year now, like continuously making it and making different kinds of bread. I found a loaf bread that I like well enough, so I haven't really experimented too much with that, but I've made all sorts of things. If you made 1 loaf and it came out dense as a brick and you've never tried again, you definitely need to try. You need to practice for your technique, and you need to try new recipes. I still get loaves that are dense as bricks, so you just have to keep trying. Just remind yourself that most bread recipes are made with flour, yeast, salt, and maybe a little bit of fat or an egg or something like that. Those are the cheapest things in the entire grocery store. So even if you make something and it turns out terrible, throw it in the compost or pitch it in the garbage, and don't feel bad about, wasting food. Maybe wasting your time, but just keep practicing, because there's nothing more delicious than homemade bread. So when you get it, it'll be worth all the extra effort. Let's see. Next question. When am I due? I already said that. Do you know what I'm having? I don't. And can we see some more pregnant mama stuff? I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what I would share. I don't share a lot of like the personal side of my family. Like I don't share my children on YouTube, so I feel like sharing a lot about my pregnancy, like specifically to me, would be kind of unfair to like tell you all about my pregnancy and then not show you my baby when it's born. If there's like anything specific topics, like general parenting topics or pregnancy topics, I could probably talk about those. I did have somebody ask if I could do a newborn cloth diaper stash, which I'll probably do maybe in October when I pull all that stuff out of storage. Spoiler, it's nothing fancy. It's just a whole lot of pre-folds, flats, and covers. But if there's something specific, you know, you can suggest it. I'll see what I can. I don't think that I do anything special, and I don't buy a lot of gear. I don't make a lot of purchases necessarily. Actually, the only thing I need to buy is some size 1 diaper covers. So I don't have like a lot of specific brands that I love to share because I try to keep things pretty simple. So I'm open to it, but I don't know what I would share. Okay, next question. Do you have a background in world travel? Your meals are like a trip around the world, and I'm curious how you got so knowledgeable in all the varieties of food. I have traveled a little bit. I went to Sweden, I've been to Canada, and I've been to the Caribbean. My husband has been several more places. He's been to London and Czech Republic, and he went to Germany many times as a child. He has family in Germany and in Sweden. But really, the way that I learned a lot about food is just this area that I live in is so culturally diverse. It's insane how many different people and markets and restaurants that you can find from everywhere in the world. And I like to try new foods. I love foods. I just like everything about eating and cooking foods. So I've tried a lot of things, and even in the suburbs where I live, you can find all sorts of things. And then if you go into DC, you can find pretty much any country, and you can meet people from all over the world. I've met people from countries where I have to admit I didn't even know that that country existed until I met that person. So that's where I get a lot of my influence for trying, you know, cuisines from different countries. Next question. How did you get started in cooking and kind of DIY your way through food? I just always liked to cook. I did when I was a kid. I liked to help my mom out in the kitchen, and my mom and my dad both worked, so a lot of like home chores were done by us kids, and I liked doing the things in the kitchen, so I would always volunteer for that so that I didn't have to fold laundry or vacuum. So I helped my mom. I did prep work for her so that when she came home from work she could you know, cook dinner more quickly so we weren't eating at midnight. And I just got a lot of experience. And as far as like, I like to make things from scratch and try new things. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I have a lot of food intolerances, so I can't, even though there are amazing restaurants around here, I can't just go to a restaurant because in my experience, even if you ask very specific questions, you don't know if the answer they're telling you is just what they think or what they know. You know, you ask a server, it's not the same person who prepares your food. The person who prepares your food is not the same person who garnishes your food. And there's all sorts of cross-contamination, and I just get very nervous when somebody else other than myself is making my food for me. So I got to do it myself. So prepackaged foods have a lot of ingredients in them that I can't eat. Restaurant foods, fast foods, all of that. It's just not worth the risk of me getting really, really sick from eating something that makes me sick. So I just do it myself. I'm kind of a DIYer in a lot of aspects of my life anyway, so food's not an exception. Let's see, next question. Okay, next question is, how old is your little one, and is she so very excited over getting to be a big sister? She's almost 3. She is very excited about being a big sister. She has a t-shirt that says Big Sister on. She wants to wear it pretty much every day. And we let her be the one to tell the grandparents. So of course they had like big outrageous responses to the news. And then because she told them, you know, she just felt so special. And yeah, she likes to talk to my belly. She has to talk through the belly button. No other area will be good enough. So she kisses the baby through the belly button and talks to the baby through the belly button. So Yeah, she's really excited. We'll see how it goes when the baby's actually here, but for now we're keeping everything light and positive. Next question is, what triggers your interest in Asian cooking? So I do cook a lot of Korean specifically food, and I think that's mostly because there's a lot of Korean markets around where I live, so I'm able to find ingredients very easily. There are other markets for other cuisines, but they're like smaller and harder to find, but I have big like Korean supermarkets in my area, so you can go in and do all of your shopping, getting all of your specialty ingredients. I also, you probably know this if you watch my videos, but I also love watching Ming Chi's channel. She does a very approachable Korean cooking for non-Koreans channel on YouTube where she makes it really easy to make something. So even if you've never tasted a certain dish or never used a certain ingredient, she makes it seem very easy to do. So I just love following her recipes, and then again, it's really easy to find the ingredients. So that's why I cook a lot of Korean food. And second part of the question is, when and from whom did you learn your sewing and yarn craft skills? My mom taught me how to sew. I was probably like 8 or 9, I think. My mom loves sewing. She is incredibly talented at sewing. She's sewn her whole life. She's worked in fur coat factories making fur and leather coats. She's worked in a couple different bridal salons, like really high-end bridal salon, one of them, working on wedding dresses and bridesmaids dresses. And then she just had a small business out of her house for, I mean, ever. She probably still does it a little bit now, but more for like friends and family sort of thing. But for a long time she was making wedding dresses, prom dresses, christening dresses, all sorts of things like that, and alterations, hemming pants for people and things like that. So I was in the fabric store a lot when I was a kid, so it was something that we could do together. My mom really wanted to teach me. Right now she really wants to teach my niece, her granddaughter, but she has no interest in it, and it's kind of breaking my mom's heart. But when I was a kid, I went along with the flow. You know, I like making things, I like crafting things, and I like spending time with my mom, so we would sew together and do little projects. I don't really enjoy sewing all that much. I find it very tedious and frustrating, and I'd much rather do something else, but it was fun to spend time with her. I love having the finished product, but I never myself got past much of a beginner's stage. So even to this day, when I want to make something, I'm on the phone with her throughout the whole project. But she's the one that taught me, and she's still teaching me. And as far as the yarn crafting, she tried to teach me, I was probably around 13. She tried to teach me how to crochet. She knows the basics of crochet. She never really picked it up the way that she picked up sewing. I was a 13-year-old girl with my excellent, reasonable communication skills of a 13-year-old girl, and I got very frustrated with the way my mom was teaching me, so that didn't last very long. I ended up basically learning out of a book, and then I really picked it up. We're kind of opposite that way. I don't really like sewing, but I prefer to crochet, and my mom, she knows how to crochet, but she prefers to sew something. So it works out good, because if there's a baby born in the family, she can make a quilt and I can make a baby Afghan. Okay, next question. I enjoy hearing the backstory of people. What started you on YouTube? How do you like it, and what's in your future? I talked a lot about this sort of topic in my small YouTuber tag, which I can link down below. I talked about how I got started on YouTube and things like that, but basically the things that I put on YouTube are the things that I'm doing anyway, the things that I'm interested in, the things that I'm passionate about. So I just put them on YouTube as a way to connect with and interact with people who are also interested in those things, because when you're really passionate about something and you find somebody else who's very passionate and you can talk back and forth, that's what makes it a lot of fun. So that's basically why I'm here. I like it well enough. I wouldn't be posting if I didn't like it. There's, you know, a few annoyances on YouTube, but as far as my future on YouTube, it's hard to say. I'm gonna have my second baby here in a couple months, and I'm kind of wondering how things are gonna change. But I started my channel after my first baby was born anyway, and I had thought about it for a long time, and I just started. And every time something changes with her, like anytime there's a phase or a big milestone or something, I think, oh, I'm gonna have to cut back. You know, when she stops napping 3 times a day, I'm gonna have to cut back. When she stops napping twice a day, I'm gonna have to cut back. When she starts walking, I'm gonna have to cut back. When she starts, you know, this, that, and the other, I'm gonna have to cut back. But through it all, I've manage to put up at least something, at least occasionally, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure what this second baby will bring, but I think that, you know, barring any really horrible circumstance, I'll probably still continue to be on YouTube, at least some. So that's the future for the channel. I'll be back. Okay, next question, a multi-part question. Were you raised in a household that fed you mostly whole foods, new and interesting foods, or what led you to your adventurous foodie lifestyle? I think my parents had an appreciation for whole foods and for scratch cooking and for fresh things. We always had a vegetable on our plate. We had salads most nights with dinner. That's kind of where I got that habit from. I remember we would get pizza from Little Caesars most weekends, and my dad and I would go, we would order the pizza, and then we would walk down to, in the same shopping center, there was a grocery store, and they had a salad bar. So we'd make a big salad for everybody to share at the salad bar, walk back to the Little Caesars, get our pizza, and then, you know, drive home and eat. And when I was a kid, I was just like, you're ruining pizza night. Why are we having salad? But it was just, they wanted to make sure that there was some fresh food in us. Even though it was pizza night, we were still eating something of some nutritional value. So between that and we had a garden a lot of summers, we shopped at the farmer's market, and my mom did like to cook from scratch. She took a lot of pride in it. She just didn't have a lot of time to do it. So she would cook for holidays and things like that, but a lot of the day-to-day cooking responsibilities kind of fell on me, and I was cooking the things that a 14-year-old could cook by themselves. So we ate hamburger helper and rice-a-roni and mac and cheese and things like that. We ate fast food quite a bit. So I'd say I do eat drastically different in that regard. And as far as new or interesting foods, not really. Both of my parents were born and raised and well into their adulthood, like into their 30s. They lived in very isolated towns. And I don't even think there was that much exposure to different kinds of food from other parts of this country, or, you know, the country that they lived in, let alone other countries. So I don't know that there was even that much exposure to like Tex-Mex food or Southern food or Cajun food or anything like that. Like, they pretty much ate Pennsylvania Dutch food their whole lives. So when we moved to this area, we ate like that quite a bit. That's the things that my mom was familiar with cooking. That's the things that she taught me how to cook. As we lived here longer and longer, we, you know, were exposed to more. You would have to really try to be isolated in this area. There's so many people from all over the world. There's so many restaurants. There's so many supermarkets. There's just so much exposure to every kind of culture. So my mom worked as a seamstress, so she worked with a lot of immigrants. And my dad worked as a foreman, so he worked with quite a few immigrants. And I grew up in a school with people from all over the world. So I would go to their house and I would, you know, try their food, and I loved everything. I can't think of a single time where I tried something and I was like, oh, I never want to try this country's food again. Like, every time I tried it, I was like, wow, this is new, this is interesting, I want to try this, I want to have more of this, I want to try from different areas of the world. You know, everything was just fun for me. So I was a little chubby kid. I like to eat, so that's how come I like to eat now. Also curious about what type of cleaners do you use? Do you use mostly homemade and natural cleaners? Not really. I did try to make some homemade cleaners once, but I was finding that I didn't really use them. A lot of them are like spray cleaners. I don't really use spray cleaners. I clean my house with water. A lot of my house I just clean with water. So wet rags clean up a lot in my house. I do use baking soda in the bathroom. And then like in my kitchen, I just use dish soap. So I use Palmolive dish soap. If there's something like really greasy on the counter or raw meat or something, I just use dish soap. I don't have any like specific cleaners for the kitchen. And then like my laundry detergent, I use Tide because that's what I use on my cloth diapers. I'm kind of in a cloth diaper lull right now, but I do have quite a bit of Tide, so I'm just using it. It's easier to have one. I did try soap nuts for my laundry. I am not convinced that they didn't do a good job, but I'm also not convinced that they did do a good job. So I got this like pound of soap nuts hanging out in my cabinet, which I probably should give them another shot now that I'm not doing cloth diaper laundry. But yeah, I don't use natural cleaners, but I don't really use that many cleaners. I try not to use bleach. I don't use anything super caustic or anything like that. But yeah, just soap and water. Good old soap and water is what I use a lot. All right, next question. How did you learn to cook? Was it self-taught or did you learn from a relative or both? My mom taught me a lot. My mom taught me how to cook certain dishes, but she also taught me about, stocking a pantry and working out of a pantry and preparing fresh vegetables and, how to pair side dishes with different meals and have a protein, starch, and a vegetable and vary up your week so you're not having the same meal over again, and recycling leftovers. All of those core solid pieces of information that I think people should know, my mom taught me, and taught me at a young age. And I felt pretty confident at a pretty early age, and so I did do a lot of experimentation on my own. Like I said, I cooked dinner for my family through most of my adolescence, and I was probably unsupervised in a kitchen a little bit more than I probably should have, but I learned a lot just from trial and error and reading cookbooks and watching cooking shows. And this was before the internet, so if I didn't know what I was doing, I just had to wing it, and I think that's a good learning tool. And then these days, when I see something that I want to try or that I've never tried before or it looks interesting, I just try it. You really have nothing to lose, so a little bit of both. I think my mom gave me a good basis to give me the confidence to feel like I can experiment, so that I was able to teach myself other things. Next part. Okay, same question. This next part of the same question is, what does your husband do for a living? He's a biologist, grows bacteria on purpose. Are you going to find out ahead of time if your little one is a boy or a girl? No or not. And love your channel. Thank you so much. What is your favorite thing to do on the rare occasion you get some downtime? If it was actually downtime, like I actually had like all of my housework caught up and I didn't have children in the house, I would probably queue up a bunch of 80s movies on Netflix and crochet and eat popcorn for dinner. That's probably what I would do. If you're talking about like downtown, like the last hour of the day after you're exhausted and you can't do anything too noisy because you'll wake up your toddler who's sleeping, I usually just veg out in front of the television. Next question. What is your educational background and what profession do you think you would be if you weren't a domestic engineer? Oh man, it seems like a lifetime ago when I think about it, but it's a little convoluted, but basically I went to public school for K through 12. I graduated high school. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I basically did nothing. I worked. I had 2 full-time jobs. I supported myself. I lived away from home. I had an apartment with a roommate, and I was working in a Joann Fabrics, and I was also working in a pharmacy. So I was working as a pharmacy technician, which is just a helper to the pharmacist, and at that time in my state, you didn't need any formal education to be a technician. And I did that for a few years, and then I realized that I didn't want to work 70 hours a week just to afford a really crappy apartment for the rest of my life. So I decided to go back to school and become a pharmacist. So to be a pharmacist, you need to have a bachelor's degree or all of the prerequisites that basically equal a bachelor's degree, and then you go to pharmacy school, which is another 4 years. So I did that. I did some community college courses. I took some at a university, and then I never got my bachelor's degree, but I transferred straight to pharmacy school and completed pharmacy school. I got my PharmD, which is a doctorate level professional degree. It's what you need in order to be licensed and work as a pharmacist in the United States. So I guess I would be a pharmacist if I wasn't a domestic engineer. Honestly, at this point in my life, I don't ever want to be a pharmacist again. But that's what my education is in. The next question was, how did I meet my husband? And we actually kind of grew up together. Like, we kind of geographically grew up together. We grew up in the same area. Our families live just a few blocks apart from each other. He's a couple years older than me, which doesn't make any difference now, but when you're in high school, it kind of influences your peer group a little bit. So we had some mutual friends. I had a friend who had an older sister who was friends with him. So I'd see him around. I knew of him. And I would see him at like group events and things like that, but I didn't really interact with him all that much. But I did have a huge crush on him. He was so cool and so confident, and he had this beautiful glossy curly hair, and he has a very distinctive laugh, which I still love to this day. And I just loved him to pieces, even though I didn't really know him that well. And then when I went to college a few years after all of my friends, and so when I was at the stage where I was coming home from school on the weekends so that I could do my laundry and eat all my mom's food, you know, that kind of early college experience. A lot of my friends were getting internships and getting jobs and not really coming to our hometown that often. So he had, you know, he was a couple years older, so he had already gotten, graduated from college, gotten a job, was pretty settled, so he had a little bit more free time and a little bit of spending money, so we'd just get together and do fun things. I was madly in love with him the whole time. I'm pretty sure for him, at least at the beginning, it was pretty platonic, but you know what happens when you spend a little one-on-one time with somebody. So we dated for, I don't know, a couple of years. I don't exactly remember. It wasn't that long, and it was only that long because I was in school. We got engaged. We weren't even engaged for a full year, and then we got married, so I snatched him up really quick. Okay? Okay, so I have one question left. My toddler just woke up, so I'm going to try to answer this one last question and wrap this up. But the last question was, what does my husband think of all of the different recipes that I cook? And my husband loves my cooking. He tells me all the time, which I really appreciate. He's very open-minded and adventurous eater on his own. He was before I even came along. He actually introduced me to a lot of foods that I hadn't had before at that point. He took me to pho for the first time. He took me to a real sushi restaurant. I didn't think I liked sushi because I had only had like pre-packaged sushi. So he took me to like a real sushi restaurant with a real sushi chef, and now I can't get enough of this stuff. So he's always been very open-minded and likes to eat, and I like to cook. So we're kind of a match made in heaven. I would have a hard time if I had picky family members. So I'm very lucky. My husband's very open-minded and my little one's very open-minded. Even when I completely screw up something, like if I totally overcook something and it's totally dried out, he still eats it happily, which I really appreciate. There's only one thing that he will kind of make little comments about, like slightly negative comments. He never like straight out says this is no good or anything like that, but anytime I make meatless meals or vegan meals, which I try to do quite often, he always makes a comment. I had to flat out tell him I don't want to hear it. And he's gotten a lot better, but it's just something that he notices, and he's very like hyper aware when there's no meat. Even if I specifically plan the meal to have more protein and to be more filling than a meat-filled meal, he feels deprived or whatever. So we're getting better on that, though. He does eat it. I still cook it. I don't care. One time a week, he can handle it. But for the most part, he's very supportive of my cooking and loves everything that I make. And he a lot of times gives me ideas of things that I've never heard of or tried before, and maybe he has, and I'm always willing to try something new, so it's a lot of fun for both of us. So those are all the questions. Hopefully I can edit this video down to be a reasonable amount of time. I hope you enjoyed hearing all of my answers. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!